Bekavich here.
Guzikowski here.
Correll here.
Seifert here.
Chandler here.
Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes of June 27th, last time we were together?
Mr. Dickman will make a motion, we approve the minutes of the June 27, 2017 meeting.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Dickman, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Bekavich, aye.
Guzikowski, aye.
Corell, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Significant common council actions, carry.
Real easy, there were none.
That's what I thought. I didn't get it.
Thought I'd get you in there, though.
Do we do all the work?
Apparently.
Apparently.
Actually, the council had a pretty light July, too. So.
Yeah.
Council actually took a week off there in July. So that
Yeah,
accounted for some of it.
Fell
so-
on a holiday this year.
Yes. So, trust everybody had a nice 4th. Item 5A, public hearing for a proposed sign appeal at the property at 7901 South 6th Street. Pete?
Yes, I'll read the public hearing notice into the record. City of Oak Creek, notice the public hearing before the Plan Commission. Public hearing for a sign appeal will be held Tuesday, July 11th, 2017 at 6 p.m. at Oak Creek City Hall, Common Council Chambers, 8040 South 6th Street, Oak Creek, Wisconsin, 53154. The appellant is Frederick Medical College of Wisconsin, Neil Jensen. Text key number 813-9056. Property is located at 7901 South 6th Street. The applicant's requesting a variance from section 17.0334, part of the General Development Plan and Regulating Plan, which states that one primary sign is permitted on entry facades only, and directional signs are not to exceed 6 square feet in area and 5 feet in height. If granted, the variance would allow the applicant to install 4 wall signs on the east elevation, 3 wall signs on the west elevation, 2 wall signs on the south elevation, 1 15 square foot, 5 foot 11 inch tall directional sign along Drexel Avenue, and 2 15 square foot, 5 feet 11 inch tall directional signs along 6th Street for the development located at 7901 South 6th Street. Zoning of the property is DTS MUPDD Drexel Town Square Mixed Use Plan Development Districts. All interested persons wishing to be heard are invited to be present, dated this 22nd day of June 2017. Plan Commission, City of Oak Creek, Wisconsin. Mayor Daniel J. Bekowitz, Chairman. This is a public hearing, and anyone who wishes to make a comment regarding this subject of this hearing is to step up to the podium, state your name and address, and proceed to address the commission with your comments. With that said, the public hearing is now open.
Thank you. As Pete said, we will make 3 calls. This is the first call. Anybody wishing to speak? Second call? Third and final call. We'll close the public hearing and move on to 6A, new business, to consider a request for a sign appeal at the property at 7901 South 6th.
All right, I will take that.
All right, Pete.
As part of the sign appeal, we have in Drexel Town Square, you always have to have approval from the Plan Commission. And so the applicant is looking to have multiple signs on different entrances of the building. This is the east elevation. This is, facing toward,
Street.
not toward Drexel, Sixth Street. And so they're looking to have each of the signs that are up there meet size regulations, just doesn't meet the number. They should only be able to have 1. And so instead of the applicant saying, I only have 2 signs on there, we've broken them down into 4 that meet the size but just don't meet the number. So that's why the variance is actually requesting to say, can we have 4 wall signs?
When you say meet the size, is that cumulative?
You're allowed to have up to 100 square foot wall
Correct.
sign.
Right.
So none of these signs on the walls exceed 100 square feet. So it was a strategy between what do you ask for a variance for? Do you ask for a variance for a 200 square foot sign once, or do you ask for additional number? And so the approach was, we'll go with the number, we're going to meet the size requirements. We're just going to put them in close proximity. So at this point, I'll talk in detail about specific square footages as part of the sign plan. But at this point, the applicant's looking for a variance to allow them to be able to install the number of signs on each of the elevation. And then on the west elevation facing the railroad tracks, they will have 2 wall signs on the north side of this elevation where my cursor is circling, as well as an ambulance entrance sign down in the middle of the building. So that's where the three on the west elevation are coming. And then the last one is, or not the last one, but the south elevation, they're having two signs. They're allowed to have one on this one, but they're requesting two, which is urgent care and then the freighter. In addition, this particular site does not allow monument signs
Yeah.
on this development. So they had a different design for their directional signs. Well, directional signs can only be 6 feet in area. Well, these are much larger than that. These are 15 feet in area and then 18 and a half. So to work with staff, they followed the same designs as the monument signs found throughout Drexel Town Square. So the idea was to kind of keep that same look, but also be able to have them to have directional, since they have, the urgent care facility, the ambulance entrance, that, you do have multiple entrances to the city. So that's why tonight they're asking for variance on the size, so they're allowed to be able to have these directional signs that exceed what goes on than what would be allowed normally in a directional sign regulations. They do have additional directional signs, but they do meet requirements, so they're not part of this variance request tonight.
Pete, on that page 8, it does say they've listed as external monument signs. That really is a misnomer then?
It's just a term used by sign companies. It's on the ground, it's short, they refer to it as monument, but
Okay.
technically we're looking at it as
As a
directional signs.
directional,
If you could look
okay.
by the arrows, it's not, a monument sign usually has like Chick-fil-A or PetSmart would have the main brand, but not necessarily arrows showing what you can do at each entrance. So with that, those are what the variances are being requested for. If the Plan Commission is comfortable with this request, they can make a motion to grant a variance allowing the installation of 4 wall signs on the east elevation, 2 wall signs on the south elevation, 3 wall signs on the west elevation, and the 2 directional signs that are 15 square feet in area and are 5 feet 10 inches or 10 inches tall, and a directional sign that is 6 foot 5 inches tall and 18 square feet, located along South 6th Street. So
Is it-
the larger one, the taller one has an extra line on the bottom. It has ambulance entrance. That's the
what-
difference between the other two.
Okay, thank
So
you.
that's why that's bigger. They're trying to direct ambulance traffic to a different entrance of the development.
Okay. Open it up for comments, questions. Pat?
Couple of questions. So it's 3 monument signs, I guess, just to keep us on task here, that are directional is the purpose, correct? And I guess we've got Freighter Medical College everywhere on the building. I don't know if we need that extra. Do they need to be that size? It's hard to get a scale feel for the whole building. I think the signs on the building all fit. You obviously need the ambulance signs and things like that. Kind of fits the scale. I'm having a hard time picturing all of these different monument signs with that much if it's going to look cluttered. If it's needed. I mean, you're going to know you're at Freighter Medical College Center. I think they're more just directional. So I don't know if we needed that large or that added signage.
So basically what you're saying, Pat, is that it's okay as a directional, that part of it. But just to continuously repeat freighter doesn't seem like it's really necessary.
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to grant some addition based on the scale of the whole building and what's there and the purpose of the medical, the ambulance and urgent care and all those things. I just don't know if we need to advertise it some more.
Okay, that's a good point.
Brad?
I guess I get a little confused. I look at this and then the next objective we have is another signage dealing with the same setup. And I'm just kind of wondering how these two
Together.
kind of fit together.
How the appeal and the sign plan go
Yeah.
together. The sign plan is required for any development in DTS. So they're going to have all their elevations, their sizes and everything. But in order for that plan to be adopted as presented, they needed to go for a sign appeal to allow for the multiple wall signs on all the elevations of the walls, and also to have the directional sign. Otherwise, if they didn't, you go through this appeal process before the sign plan, you could not approve the sign plan because all of their signs are not following the DTS regulations. So that's why we're doing the sign appeal first. It looks like it's repeating, but we're looking at right now just the number of signs and the size of the directional signs. If that is acceptable to the commission, they can make a motion to grant the variance allowing the number and the size. And then at that point, we'll go discuss for the sign plan review, saying, all right, this is what the applicant wants to do. Make, 4 on the east, 3 on the west, 2 on the south. These are the sizes. These are the number. Are you comfortable with what's being presented? Then you approve the sign plan, then they can go for permits. So that's why we're going through this double hoop.
It looked a little confusing to me, that's all. Kind of, where do you draw the line and how do you match it up?
So, let's play out the scenario where maybe the size is not, the number the commission's fine with, but maybe not necessarily the size of the directional signs. They can be shrunk. The plan commission has the discretion to grant the variance for the directional signs to be smaller. If the applicant chooses to make the content, the urgent care, the main entrance, all those smaller so they can still put their freighter logo on there, that's up to the applicant. But you, as this commission, can decide, a 5 foot by 3 foot directional sign is just too large. Our regulations are 6. You're asking for nearly 3 times the size. Maybe there's a number that the commission feels is better. You can say, 15 is too much, 10. We'll give you 10. And that's up to you guys to decide.
We can't monitor content once we give them the size, correct? So
Correct.
if they wanted to put the whole thing just with freighter up there,
25% of the sign can be the logo.
can be logos.
So that we do have a regulation that only,
Okay.
a fourth of the sign can show that.
So this portion of the appeal, we should talk about number and potentially the size if we don't agree with the size of all those monuments.
Correct.
And then the
And after that,
portion.
we make that motion, and then at that point, we'll present the sign plan, and then we'll have to modify the sign plan if we change anything as part of the variance. If that is clear. So say it is the 10-foot directional signs, that's the largest you allow them to go. When we review the sign plan, we'll make a motion to approve it with the directional signs being no larger than 10 square feet in area, and then it'll be up to the applicant to fit all their content within that size.
So although we don't, as Pat pointed out, having that freighter hospital on the top of each sign, we can't dictate what goes on that sign, just the size.
Right.
So they can do it even though we don't.
I mean, right now, they
Careful,
have
let's
the
put it that way.
size, they don't have the they don't have
Right.
the number.
But if it's a smaller sign, they may not like to have that.
Yeah.
And how much larger than what would be allowed on the size of those signs? Is it, Pete, the monument again?
6 feet. Because we're treating these as directional signs, even though they're identified, labeled as monument. These are directional signs pointing to the various wings and entrances to the site. By the DTS zoning code, this particular parcel is not allowed to have a standalone monument sign, saying freighter or whatever. And so that's why the variance tonight is based on directional signage, not monument size.
I have a question for the applicant.
The applicant emailed me, she was in traffic over on the north side of town on Ramona. No, not here yet. She's en route, but she is stuck in traffic, so.
We'll move on. Wally?
Oh, wait.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Maybe
Oh, I'm
you
sorry.
can
Go ahead.
assist.
Go ahead.
So I'm just trying to understand, for some of the signs, they're exactly the same on the same sides. I wasn't clear why we need so many signs saying the exact same thing. Do you have any feedback for that one?
Unfortunately, I
Okay.
don't know. I mean, from talking to the sign rep throughout this process, review process by staff, it's the size of the building.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for them, but on the east side, they're putting one high, and it is a 3-story building, 4-story building. So they have one on what would be the northwest corner. Yeah, it would be on the north corner.
So for this elevation, the east, if you're heading, west on Drexel, you could be pretty far away if you see the one on the
Yeah,
top
it's
story.
kind of you could probably spot that almost coming down at Howell.
So if you see that one, then you'll definitely see the other one.
Well, this one's kind of hidden on 6th Street. That one's a little farther in. You actually have to turn into Town Square to see the one on the one depicted as wood.
So is it possible to have that sign in the middle? And then you can see it?
I
either
aesthetically
direction?
don't think it looks that bad, quite frankly. I think that building is big enough to possibly support those two signs, in my opinion.
So this is the west side facing,
So that's the
railroad
west
tracks.
side facing railroad tracks. So coming down Drexel, you may be able to see that coming from 13th.
So you wouldn't see the other signs?
No,
No.
you
Not
wouldn't.
even the, okay.
No,
Until you get-
not till you
Okay.
get there. And then the rest of them
Okay.
are on the south side. They propose nothing to the north.
Right, so
Okay.
there's nothing
Where there's
facing
no
Drexel.
traffic.
It's
Right.
more of an oncoming traffic that
Right.
Okay.
you'll see the sign.
The one that gets me, I guess I'm getting back to the monument sign, is it's on our print, it's sign monument 2, and it sits right at the corner of 6th Street and Drexel. I don't really know the point of having that one there.
And there's also questions that we're not sure on when it comes to easements, utility easements. Even if they're granted a variance to allow it, they may not be able to actually put it in there based on any utility easements or any other easements that might, a vision triangle may cause a problem for location
Correct.
anyway. But they wanted to
I
come
cannot,
before you to get, see if you would allow it.
yeah, I can understand asking for the other one, or 2. Second one. They're nice looking, they're aesthetically well done with the brick and everything. I do like that they put the town square and the address on them. That's appealing. But I just don't know about that one out there on Drexel. I don't see that one. As far as the west side goes, I know they call it 3 signs because they're separate where it says Town Square Facility or Healthcare Center. And then the Freighter, it is another sign. So although it looks as one sign, it's counted as 2. Am I correct in that, Pete?
Yeah, because there was two approaches to go. Either they could say, we want a variance from the size, being, 200 or whatever. I can't remember the exact dimensions of what they are, or would it be just looking for the number, saying, we meet the design, we meet the size, but we just don't meet the number. And so it was kind of, which way do you want to go? And so the applicant went with looking for a variance on the number than the size.
I think if they need a directional, as you're looking at this west view, keep in mind they're cutting a road in there to come up between that parking structure and this medical facility. I'd be better off with a directional sign down at the road that says delivery and ambulance only, because you're going to have everybody trying to cut in that way, and it's going to be a
They do
mess.
have proposed, and I didn't include as part of the sign appeal because those are not, they met code and they met the size requirements. They're in your packet for the sign plan review.
Even
See here.
Are they?
Those are awful.
I see they got signage on the parking structure. Is that a separate deal? Will the
Yeah,
parking
that's-
structure come separately to us?
That was my.
Yeah, that's part of the sign plan review. They're allowed to have one wall sign per entrance. So they have it's 100 square feet for the whole thing. Plus they have signage for their entrance, but that is for this part of the sign plan. No variance was required for that particular sign.
Oh, so that's why we don't cover it here at all then.
That's why it's not
So
being
there's no
covered in a sign
variance.
appeal, yep.
Because, we're looking at the sign, but also on the west side of the building, right, facing the parking structure on
Mm-hmm.
the main building. So I just looked, do we need that? I mean, if they're in the parking structure, I sure know they're at the hospital. I mean, I don't know if they need that one either. It just
Well,
seems
and
like
that's
they
part
got
of the
so
sign
many.
plan review.
So just
So
wait till we get there.
we'll deal with the parking structure signage as part of the sign plan review.
But those things, are they allowed anyway? So, I mean, our bite at the apple is really at this point on the variance because they're gonna get that regardless if we give them everything here.
Well, if you
I
give
guess
them,
we're looking at the totality of all the signs when you add it with the plan. Now you're talking a lot of signs. I guess, I don't want to speak for maybe somebody that lives at Drexel Town Square might weigh in, but that's an awful lot of signage right outside of very nice development, and there's no one that's not going to know that the hospital's there.
right.
If we could cut the signs in half, I still know it's there. To the mayor's point, to the one directional sign out on the corner, stuff, the ambulance drivers are going to know where they're going. It just seems like some overkill to me in totality, especially when we look at B at the next plan.
I agree.
I have another question. So at the other locations, are the signs this large? Is this customary?
Ramona? The representative has walked in,
Do you want
okay.
and so
You wanna
you can walk up to the
address us?
podium
Feel
and then
free.
just say your name and address.
My name is Ramona Miranda. I'm with Lemberg, and we're the sign provider for Freighter.
Is there anything you want to talk about the signs while we're discussing, or you just want to listen to what we have to say first?
I may want to listen to what you have to say first and answer to your question. This is relatively small compared to a lot of the signs that we do for Freighter.
The directional signs are small?
Yes. Oh, yeah. The building signs, the directional signs are comparable to if you've ever seen the property Moreland Reserve in New Berlin. These were copied off, the directional signs were copied off that new location.
Oh, so they are the same.
These are the same, yes.
And that building is just as large as this one?
Yes. It has another floor. But it has the same sort of footprint.
And that question I asked earlier was in regards to some of the signs. Which elevation is it? The east?
East.
You have duplicate signs, and I just wanted to get a little more information on why the same verbiage on 4 different signs on the same side.
The one's location is lower, and I understand that. Just for better visibility for anybody looking for the location, and they want to make sure that everybody understands that that lower elevation is tied in to the large side of the building.
There was a comment, if I might jump in,
Sure.
earlier about on all the directional signs, everyone has Freighter Hospital at the top. And you were seeing Freighter. It's an overkill. And we can't, I believe, control what goes on there. We can just control the size of the sign, right?
Size, number.
Number, okay. So just so you're aware, we just thought that it's kind of an overkill because everybody's going to know after a few signs that it's Freighter.
Yeah, and they like to brand themselves, so they want everyone to know that it's this way to their location, this way to their location. So
I don't think I think the directional signs are fine as far as what they do.
right,
That was the point we were looking at.
no,
at the top.
I understand.
Everyone has the same top.
I understand. You're talking about the branding issue, right?
And the way to look at that is if it's purely directional, they don't need to be that large.
Right.
That's our option, right, at this point.
I think that's it, right, Pete? That's our option, the size.
Right. When it comes to these directional signs, the 6 foot is the regulation. If you want to make them, they're asking for 15. You can choose where you want to go with that size. If they want to choose to, take it down instead of being, was it 5 feet by 3 feet? It's up to the commission. If we think 10 feet, 12 feet, it's up to the commission's discretion as to how large of a variance from the 6 foot regulation you want to go, square foot regulation.
I guess one other question for the applicant would be with the directional signs in terms of number, is there a priority from the applicant side of those directional signs? In other words, you're asking for a variance above the total allotted, Pete, or just,
Well, directional signs, say like you have handicap, you have do not enter, all those, we don't limit the number of those, but these are 3 directional signs that exceed the size. And so they need a variance to grant that. I mean, you could say, you know what, we're only going to grant 2 signs when located along 6th Avenue to exceed the 6 foot. You can specify in that motion, so that way those directional signs that are larger
Would
would
be
only
in
be permitted
specific-
along 6th Street and would
That's
not be
kinda where
allowed
it's going.
where Drexel. So you can just not grant a variance for a directional sign on Drexel. And so in the motion, say we allow a 15 square foot, 5 foot 10 inch tall directional sign on 6th Avenue at the north entrance, and a 6 foot 5 inch
Yes.
tall
6'5"
sign,
on Drexel.
18 and a half square feet at the south entrance of the development along 6th Avenue. So that's just so specific that those are the locations we'll allow extra supersized
Yeah.
directional signs.
I guess the commission, what I'm looking at is if we, I'd probably be okay with the larger size if it was limited, if we stayed off of Drexel. I don't know that the directional sign at Drexel is doing anything but brand, in my opinion. You're pulling into the property. So,
Yeah, the one on Sixth, I don't see. I can see the 2 at the entrance, particularly the second entrance, because you're getting close to Emerald Row. It's going to be backed up tight there. There may be additional parking there for Emerald Row residents, if not public. That remains to be seen. So I can understand those 2. I just don't get the one out on 6th Street.
I can explain the one on Drexel, and that is to keep people from pulling into that Western Moore Drive. That is strictly for emergency vehicles and for delivery trucks
I
egress.
think the big do not enter, its delivery ain't gonna deter them. I wasn't a fan of that road, just to go on record. I think
Okay.
it's a terrible idea to even put that road in there. So,
plus the directionals, I'd be more okay with the size because I do think they're nicely done.
yeah, I do, and I I'm more concerned with how they're done than the size is up to you guys. I mean, we don't want them to be billboards, but
We're kind of saying that we'd like to see the directional sign, which is on 6th and Drexel, not be there. Is that what you're saying? Because it's the hospital there when you pull in. We already got
well, again,
signs.
we don't even know where the right of way is going to be.
That's good.
I didn't be able to get it.
It may not even be able to get in there. That's
Right. And again, if you're driving on Drexel, the sign's parallel to you as you're driving. It'll be
It'll be perpendicular. I put the site plan up. They,
Oh, yeah,
have
it will
a
be.
possible
You're
location.
correct.
So as you
You're
approach,
Yeah.
you'll see
I
the
just,
sign there.
yeah,
One option I think you and I spoke about is by putting up a blue H, the universal, and have the arrow point in
Oh,
as a different way to identify where the hospital entrance is. I mean, I've seen that at other communities where they just have that, which is just a standard,
true.
instead of having the full, directory as they're proposing in the application.
So, I guess we should take it a side at a time. Start with the easy side, the south side. Everybody take a look at the south side. Throw the south side up there, Pete.
Yep.
Yeah, that's why.
good.
That's why I took the easy one.
that's the
Let's
easy one. Yeah,
let's
you
go to
gotta
the
have
west.
one.
The west had 3. That's coming. Yeah, that's heading east. I'm okay with everybody on board.
And
with
likely
that?
the ambulance won't likely see from the road, because with the railroad tracks, the parking structure, by the time you see it, you're zooming past the entrance.
Now, keep in mind, I'm thinking that sign is going to be higher than the railroad trestle.
Ambulance?
No, that freighter Drexel Town
yeah.
Square.
Yeah, that should.
That's the
so
intent.
that'll be visible.
That would be visible, and I think that's why that monument sign possibly may not be needed. But we'll get into that next. You want to go to the east, son?
Oh, wait, before we
go back.
continue,
Yeah.
the other sign, it doesn't seem legible. I mean, you can't
Which one, the
read
top
it.
one?
The ambulance.
The ambulance
Oh, the
sign?
ambulance.
Yeah, that is direct, for the ambulance drivers that come in, that is a directional sign, but since it is on the wall, we have to count it as a wall sign.
Their pixel scheme will be better when they build
Yeah, I mean, the purpose of that ambulance entrance
Okay.
is not necessarily for people driving along Drexel. It's once you're interior to the,
Yeah.
to the
I was just
development.
concerned with the size, because that I would think you would want large, so you know where the ambulance is
What
supposed to
size
go
is it?
versus the other.
What size is that 1 feet?
Uh-oh.
Assistant Chief also might have an answer.
There's a
Chief? 1 foot by 9 feet, 9 square feet is that sign. 1 foot tall by 9 feet.
You guys gonna have a problem finding that sign?
Mike Kresick, Fire Department. So, you've got a facility that is, I would technically probably not a hospital yet, per se, but rather a clinic with the urgent care clinic also in play. You are going to have an ambulance entrance that is specified. So all the signage certainly helps our crews get to where they need to go to pick up a patient that need to be transported to another facility. So for the Oak Creek Fire Department, you're talking probably a couple weeks to a month before the crews have exposure to responses there. Not being a terribly complex site, at that point, they'll know where to go. The signage helps for future. We do utilize mutual aid partners that may need to respond to that facility, or there may be other EMS agencies that respond to that facility. So the signage does help. We have a lot of flexibility at the Oak Creek Fire Department because we can pre-plan and we'll know where we're going with that. The ambulance entrance, I think the size they have established is probably adequate. More than adequate.
West.
Go to the east. We're okay with the west?
For me, it's too many signs.
It is a large building, and with the change of the building material to the outside, if I'm not mistaken, the entrance is more to the left of this building, to the smaller one-story part. So you're kind of directing people, you really don't enter under the big area. So I think once you make that turn and it's right on that crowded corner, and you're driving, you still are like, oh, that's still the building. I really think it might be needed.
Paulie, what's your opinion?
I kind of agree with you on that one because I was just trying to picture myself driving in there, and I could see that. First of all, you see the large sign or the high sign from a long ways off, but as you turn in, you have to keep going. Now, as you drive down, it says, "Oh, I'm still at the hospital. I'm still heading, that would be south, right?" I kind of like that the way it is, to tell you the truth, and I would not want to move it more to the center. I think it's fine where it's at.
Chris?
Go with it.
Yeah.
Different elevations kind of makes it needed, I think, with the
Wally?
size of the building.
Anything, Wally?
No, I agree. You come in, you see one, and then as you drive on, you can catch the other one.
To reduce the number of signs, can we remove one Drexel Town Square sign?
No. I'd like the Drexel Town Square on there. If I'm gonna make that variance, I want Drexel Town Square on there.
You want both of them, right?
Okay.
I'm a fan of both of them. Again, if Freighter's gonna tag it, we're gonna tag it.
Okay. Makes sense.
Monuments. Let's talk monuments. That's gonna be the hard ones. Now keep in mind, what's that? Yeah, no signs on the north. The monument signs. Keep in mind, I cited the driveways on 6th Street. You may enter this facility coming from the south too, coming down 6th Street, not always off Drexel. So again, I think that's important for ambulance crews, as well as people that have to use the facility. So I'm kind of along Pat's lines. I think they're aesthetically very nice. Not totally sold on that one on Drexel. I'll ask for your opinions on that, and you guys can kind of hash it out Chauncey, you want to start?
Sure. I see the value in 2 of the 3 signs, for sure. I'm still thinking they're too large of a sign. Still with the recommendation of 5 feet high, because some are 5, 10, 6 feet. It's just too large for that space, for that area.
Go ahead, Dawn.
The reason we went to more of a monument sign versus just a directional sign was why?
Their original design was how would you describe their original proposal, the directional signs, how they looked? I don't have those handy right now.
They didn't have, the original sign designs did not have the brick base with the cap on them. They were more like a tombstone type shape
Yeah.
with the different levels on it. But we were given direction that we had to stay within the monument signs of the development. So we've gone with this.
I was just at an Aurora facility, large facility, and didn't have the brick base. As you said, it's kind of a stand-up tombstone.
Mhm.
I'm a short guy, but those things are as tall as me, if not taller. So they had to be about 6 foot or better. So, and this one stands 6.5 feet at the top, total width of base.
The monument number 3, which is on the southeast side. And that's taller because it has the direction for the ambulance, because it guides the ambulances to along the south
Yeah.
entrance rather than going through the parking lots and inhibiting
Thank you for
pedestrian
pointing
traffic.
that out. Otherwise, they're 5'10". And I would,
Right, right.
what's the one on the north entrance?
That one is 5'10" also, I believe. That's
that
monument
would
number
include
2.
all 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think that, I mean, this isn't a huge hospital facility where, maybe we've made directional signs on that other one that's across from Walgreens on Howell and Ryan, and they didn't seem to be this big in such a more of a tight area.
Yeah, they sat on a corner though. That kind of, I would say, the main entrance point isn't off Drexel. The main entrance point's off 6th Street on this one, which makes it a little bit more difficult to get into. So,
And my question too is the ones on 6th, they show it on the corner and then in the middle and then the one like when you would turn. It's almost like those might be it's those 2 on 6th Street that you would be able to see both of them. As you were driving, it's not that far away.
no, you're correct. It's not, but they're,
If it's backlit, wouldn't you there's the direction, why would you have 2 sets?
2 entrances.
Right. But would it need a whole lit sign that said open, urgent care?
I think you can.
Wally,
My fault.
go ahead.
If we were to, I'm sorry.
Wally's got it. Wally, go for it, Wally. You had it. Fred, sorry.
Going the other way.
Fred, Wally. I've been calling you Wally all night.
I noticed that.
Somebody correct
I
me.
wanted to see how long it'd take you to catch on.
You know, if I can keep it rolling, I'll call you
Should I
Fred,
turn the
Wally.
sun?
Yeah, turn it that way. Thank you.
Anyway, I just think that we could kind of reduce that sign by just getting rid of the top Freighter Medical Center. You're looking strictly at the urgent care, the main entrance, the visitor, and the ambulance entrance. Those are the key because you've got it on the building. You've got it on the north side, the west side, east side, the south side. You could possibly reduce that a little bit so that you can bring it down. I'd like to see it around 5 feet or less because you start getting at 6 feet, 7 feet, and you're in a car, you can't all of a sudden see that high end of the sign. You're looking at 4 feet, basically. If you're in a car, looking out a window, that's 4 feet.
Well, first off, we cannot obviously control the content.
Well, I agree.
But I agree, the size is, I think we need to
But the size-
reduce the size
I'll bring it down, that you start getting above that 5 feet.
and the number.
So that's my opinion.
While he can talk. Go ahead, Mr. Dickman.
No, if we reduce the size, then they can put on the sign what they want. And I'm assuming, you know, I mean, if I were in their position, I would eliminate the Freighter Health Center because it's on the building. But if you look off on the right, there's a little bit there that says Drexel Town Square too. Then they would probably drop that off. Now, we have to have the directions and we have to have the address. So that would stay. So I'd like to see the sign made smaller, like Fred said.
The way the staff calculated the size of the sign was the 5 foot by 3 foot, which is the dark black cabinet. We did not include the address or the branding of Drexel Town Square as part of the directional overall size.
Oh.
Because we figured that was an effort by the applicant to follow the design standards for DTS. So we figured we would not penalize them for doing it because they could create it was a good word, it was a tombstone where it's just they're whatever color their building is, they just make it real narrow, make it very, the design just wouldn't be there. It just would be kind of a tombstone with the directionals on there. So the applicant made an attempt to improve the look of the directional sign. And so staff did not penalize them for their address and the DTS logo on there, as well as the base doesn't count. They could probably lower the base, possibly it's 2 feet, 6 inches. Typically they're 2 feet tall.
Yeah.
So they can probably shave off, 6 inches off the base if they wanted to, but they were following the Drexel Town Square standards. So
I think Fred had a good point, though, that when you're driving, you can't, you're looking up like this, you are looking more straight out and you want to see it.
Keep in
And
mind,
you're close to it.
this
when you're
is no
driving.
higher than a stop sign. A stop sign's probably
7 feet.
7 foot. So,
But you're farther away from a stop sign.
well,
If you're driving along, you're driving right along the hospital, the sign is right there.
We limit them to two signs, can they decide which one where they are, Pete? If we limit them to 2 monument signs, it's then in their court to decide which ones. Can we limit specifically where it is? We can.
in the motion, you could, I included in the report, I made a comment saying, proposed sign located at the northern entrance on 6th Street would be 5 feet 10 inches in height and be 15 square feet in area. You could say that, the directional sign on the northern entrance on 6th Street will be 5 feet tall and 10 square feet in area. Now, the applicant can, work their magic as to how they do it. They might still want Freighter Medical to be 25%.
branding. We get
They might
that.
they might have to shrink their font size for their other directional. That's up to the applicant. So as a commission, what we can do is number, height, size. Those are the things that we can grant the variance for tonight. So they're asking for 3 extra supersized directional signs. It's up to the commission to determine if 3 supersized directional signs are warranted for this development.
But if we were to change the number, then that would affect the next item we have, which is the site plan. They'd have to go back and make changes to the site plan and bring it back?
No, we could go to the sign plan and say, because in the
Or
sign
sign,
plan
I'm sorry,
review,
sign plan.
in the sign, the master sign plan review, we can make, we approve the sign plan with the condition that only 2, we can make the conditions of what has to change as part of your approval as a sign plan. They wouldn't have to make the changes and come back with a new one. We
Okay.
can make those changes as part of the motion. It just would have to be included.
I'm going to mention on the quantity or the number of the directional signs, as you're calling them. When these are for a clinic, this is for urgent care. This is to direct people in urgent situations many, many times. So if you've got someone with you, you've got an anaphylactic shock, you're going to want to see that message urgent care as often as possible. You're going to want to be directed as often as possible. Because when you stop and think, when you're in an urgent situation, you get tunnel vision. You get tunnel vision. Everything closes down and you don't see everything that's around you. So as someone who addresses and guides and recommends wayfinding, we recommended that they have these 3 signs, especially from Drexel, because you're coming off Drexel. Do you know if this clinic has urgent care or not? And it's it's critical to know in those types of situations. You got your baby that's got burned. You got somebody with a fish hook in the eye. You got somebody with an anaphylactic shock. You got someone who you think might be a stroke, and you're almost there. You need to know. You need to be able to identify this as quickly as possible. So this isn't strictly for advertising, and this isn't strictly for flaunting themselves. This is healthcare. This is urgent care. This is critical care, and that's why we've got 3 directional signs identified as boldly as they are.
Well, I think to your point on the branding, we love the fact that they're here. So if they choose, and it's really up to the sign company and Freighter to determine the context of what you want to put on the sign. So we truly understand the fact that, the directions are very important for a variety of reasons. I just think from the standpoint from many that maybe just the number might be too many.
I don't think, no matter how dire my situation was, that with 2 of those larger signs, I'd have any problem. I'm already at what I feel is a hospital, so I don't think it's, I respect your opinion, but I think it's more than we need. I'd be a proponent of 2, and I'd be okay with the size. And quite frankly, I don't have a preference. I don't get the Drexel, but I wouldn't have a preference of what, because I think that you're correct with those 2 are kind of close together, that we're leaving them, in my opinion. So I wonder if the corner and 1 over there might be best, but I don't really have a preference. I just know I don't need to see 3.
Right, and I'm thinking, okay, so you're in an emergency situation, you got off the expressway, you're coming down, east, and you're gonna see the one that's kind of after the railroad tracks, and it's kind of up really high, and but you're looking on the street for a sign, and you really don't have a street sign, because it's on the side of the building this way. So as you're coming through, that there's a sign that says urgent care, turn here. I think that corner one's probably the most important.
No. And if you're heading west?
No, heading east.
Heading east,
Is
I
it
know.
Getting off the
Heading
expressway?
east.
Okay, if you're heading east, but if you're heading west on 6th, then I think the sign becomes important then, not so much east. Because you're going to see
I just think
the
the Drexel,
one on the west side.
the one on Drexel. Plus, nobody sees it. It's a busy intersection. It's not unattractive. It's not like it's staring.
Yeah, I'm okay with that one staying. I don't know that we need 3 in a row on the
Right.
same side.
Because the other one the farthest one is up against Emerald Row. It's more where people live and walk, and
You'd almost say the middle one in the corner.
I'd keep the middle one in the corner and get rid of the really far one. Because it's the far parking anyway. If you have an emergency situation, you wouldn't take that entrance anyway. Probably, right?
Can you put up the south? Pete, could you put up the south?
South one?
You please.
That's the small one. Let's find the big one. Now, I know that with the discussion on the one on 6th and Drexel, I mentioned earlier that at this point, we're not sure if there's any restrictions when it comes to vision triangle, easements, or anything else. So, even though a variance may be granted, it still may be blocked due to other encumbrances along Drexel Avenue. So something, the applicant will need to address later, because at this point, we're looking at the number, the size. We haven't really taken a look into consideration, is it even feasible to locate?
So if we approve 2, with 1 of each size, that could work for them, depending. If they can't, they could go with the other 2. You know what I'm saying?
So if I understand, so if you grant variance for 2, but don't necessarily cite the location, you say, we'll let you have 2 supersized directional signs. If one works, on Drexel, fine, or, if you want to put 2 along 6, that's fine, just that you can't have 3
Right.
supersized directional.
I think it would fit.
And that would,
That would give them the best opportunity then of what.
to locate them.
Yep.
Give them a little bit more flexibility, and it would limit the number of signs from 3 to 2.
Another question, are the directional signs 2-sided or is it only on one side?
Double-sided.
Oh, it is double-sided.
So if you're coming up 6th from the south, you can see the sign. If you're coming south on 6th, you'll see the signs also.
On the south, all we got is and we have the urgent care, right, sign, that's it?
That's the only
Yeah,
urgent care on
yeah,
the
I
wall
think
sign.
well, that definitely is needed there, that's for sure.
So in trying to move this somewhere, so we'd be the point where we'd be approving the variance to grant them 9 wall signs on 3 elevations. We're all good with that.
Yep.
And 2 directional signs, one not to exceed the 5'10", 15 square foot, and one not to exceed 6'5", 18 square feet. And if they end up getting rid of the corner, I mean, that'd be up to them on the size. I'm okay with it.
Yep, then they would, determine if they wanted two on along 6th Street, one on Drexel, one on 6th, that'd be a little bit of flexibility
Yep.
for that. The flexibility may not even be
It really,
an option if there's encumbrances on Drexel that would prevent them from even locating there, but then they would still have the ability to.
and they
put
would have to
2.
come back to us. They could move forward. They've got 2 of them.
Yeah,
Place it.
yes.
But we may want to identify where the taller sign should go. We don't want the taller sign.
I think they're in a pretty, I
Yeah.
don't want to speak for the applicant, but they probably put the taller one where they want the ambulance entrance to
Correct.
go. So that one is going to be pretty much, the big one's going to go there.
Okay.
It's the other one, is it going to be the northern entrance on 6th, or is it going to be on Drexel? That would be up,
The tall one's going to go regardless. I mean, it's going
That
to be
should
there
be with the
regardless.
because of the ambulance, you have to have that extra line of text on the directional sign.
Chief Kresick, you want to say a few words?
The fire department, I generally don't weigh in on signs. It's really not our area. Now, this is a medical clinic, and I'm sure it has the potential for more in the future. The signage routes different apparatus. It routes ambulances, it routes the public, and it routes visitors. Clinic visitors, those that are seeking urgent care, and then emergency vehicles. So the signs all have different meanings. So in that regard, the more signage, the better in our case, especially when there's alternate routes for each. You want to direct the urgent care patients in the most direct route to aid, whether it's a minor emergency or somewhat of a major emergency. You want to direct emergency apparatus to the route that's least crowded with vehicles for the most direct access in and out of the facility. And then visitors and employees probably have an alternate route that allows for somewhat, routine travel. So when we look at this, we look at it in terms of the more signage for now and in the future, maybe potentially the better, as long as that signage is specific to what they're trying to direct.
And again, I was the first to come out and say, maybe we only need the 2. We could probably live with the 2. I don't think we'd be exactly hurt by the 3. We're very intimate with this site. We know this site. Think about it if you're coming from up north or out of town. So I think the assistant chief makes a lot of sense when he brings it up that way. I've softened my stance a little bit, particularly on the one on Drexel. So again, I don't have a particular problem with the height or anything. It's really up to you as to what you want to call.
Personally, I think you're coming from each direction. You're covered with signage. Again, I think there's plenty there. I have no problem with the height if they're both larger. That's not my biggest issue is the number. I'm going to throw a motion out there and let's find out where one's at,
Let's see where
please.
we're at.
Good luck.
Corral moves that the commission approve a sign variance for 7901 South 6th Street to allow for a total of 9 wall signs on 3 elevations of the building and 2 directional signs, one being 5'10" tall and 15 square feet in size, and one, or not to exceed that, and one not to exceed 6'5" tall and 18 square feet in size. Enough, Pete? Kuzikowski will second.
Roll call.
Hickman, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Kuzikowski.
Good job.
Correll, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, right?
All back to the same thing.
Oh, we're not done yet.
Oh, keep going, all right. There we go.
All right, 6B, next sign plan review, proposed and submitted by Neil Jensen, Freighter Medical, for the facility at 7901 South 6. Pete?
All right. May not have heard about this, but there's a sign plan being proposed for Freighter Medical College. We had a lot of discussion regarding the signage, but as part of DTS, all developments require a sign plan. And I'm losing my graphics. And so with that, the applicant has put forward a sign plan that did include signage that was, part of the variance that was reviewed earlier this evening. And so some of this stuff will be very, very familiar. One of the things that we can start out by talking about the primary signs, secondary signs, eye-level signs. You've heard me say that with other developments. And so the applicant put together this package that identifies it. We do have the site plan that we were looking at earlier. They have it highlighted of each of where all the wall signs are going to be located, where the eye-level signs, as well as the signs for the parking structure. So we talked about it before. I won't go into much detail, but as for the east elevation, there are 4 wall signs being proposed. They do meet the size requirements. The way we broke it down is the channel letters were each a sign, and then the Freighter Medical College logo was a sign. One of the things we don't allow is internally lit cabinet signs, and so the applicant followed a design that they've used in Mequon, which is they'll have a push-through lettering with halo lighting. So the blue and green base at night, light will be illuminated on it. It won't be internally lit. If you look at some of the other medical complexes that they have a real thin illuminated sign where the blue and the green are illuminated as well as the letters. So the applicant has made effort to meet the design guidelines within DTS. And in the report, I have that the large one is 100 square feet in size. And let's see here. And the other one is 41 square feet in size. And then comparably, there's a 38 square foot one for the channel letters. So that's the east elevation for primary signs. On the west, we've talked about that as well. Same thing. It's going to be channel letter, internally lit. It'll be white. The Freighter, again, is the push through with the halo lighting onto the base. So that'll be similar. Actually, just as it looks, they're all the same design. They all meet the size and design standards for DTS. And the south elevation, I don't have these in order in my packet here. Let's see, where are we? I just have the small version up there. Right, there it is. All right. So on the south elevation, there's 2 signs. The Freighter, again, it's that push through with the halo light, the urgent care. They put a night view on that. The red will not be illuminated at night, just the words urgent care. So during the day, you'll see the red with the white lettering, but at night, you'll just see the white lettering of urgent care. Same with the Freighter Medical College. Again, you see that halo. You see the letters are lit up. The light around it is halo lit. You're not going to have a bright sign compared to a box sign that you could see elsewhere. Then there's the parking structure. They have it facing on the east elevation. It's 100 square feet. The logo, same style with the routed sign with the halo lit and backlit signs. This is our first parking structure.
That's your east view here?
Yes.
That you're showing us now?
Yes. As for secondary signs, then there's the ambulance sign that we talked about earlier on the west. I'm kind of jumping around here, but that is 1 foot by 9 foot. That also too will be orange with white lettering, but at night you'll see just the white lettering. So kind of nice if your residential face, you don't see the bright orange, or not, well, in that particular case because you're facing the parking structure. But once again, they've taken efforts. There'll be a push-through lettering similar to some of the signs you see down on Main Street of DTS. Then there are secondary signs. We talked about the directional signs. We had a little bit of discussion on, and let me see if I can find those. So when we approve the sign package, they're proposing 3. We're just going to have to make a change to the motion when if the commission chooses to approve the plan, the sign plan for tonight, that only 2 directional signs are allowed to exceed the maximum. We can just repeat the 5-foot 10-inch and the 6-foot 5-inch tall signs. In addition to the 2 that will be permitted for the sign package, there are additional signs. This will be located on that entrance off of Drexel. There was talk about it. It is a 2-foot by 3-foot, which meets code. Ramona, did I have the wrong graphics for this one? Was this larger? Because I see we played phone tag, and I hate to have this sidebar conversation, but it's really 3 foot 6 inches by 2 foot. If you can see the logo on the bottom. Oh, did I write it wrong? Oh, there it is. I was wrong. I did read it wrong. I read it wrong again. So we're fine. 3 foot by 2 foot. We're good.
Okay, Pete, I've been calling people the wrong names all night.
Yeah, right. And then the last one are the eye level signs. These are for, purposes of identifying entrance numbers and whatnot. They will not exceed 10% of the glass. Here's an example of the existing vinyl they have on other facilities. Of course, you'll have the, do not enter, for safety reasons and stuff like that, but that's what they'll have for eye level signs. That does comply with the DTS code of no more than 10% of the clear glazing can be covered with signage. With that said, staff recommends that the Plan Commission approve the sign plan submitted by Freighter to Medical College of Wisconsin for the development located at 7901 South 6th Street with the modification to the allowing only 2, I've been saying supersized directional signs. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'm sure everybody got that crystal clear. Pete went through a lot. So we'll open up with questions. Fred?
It's good to me.
Rossi?
Finally.
I have a question about the parking garage. So there's only one sign on the parking structure?
Just on the east,
Just the east side?
if I'm correct.
Yes, and then there are the directional parking that will be above the entrances. I'm sorry, I did skip that in my presentation. Those will be found on the south side and the east side toward the northern end. So these are your standard type of directional enter, exit.
Okay.
Here's parking level 1. So, this is our first one. There isn't any other sign regulations we have to parking structures.
Right. And those are essential.
Which are directionals, yeah.
Those are directional, yep.
All
Considered
these
directional.
signs are to the code, all
These are in
the ones
compliance
that
with,
we didn't discuss in the prior. item.
correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Now, it's just, the Plan Commission does, have discretion with some of the rules and regulations when it comes to design standards, but in this particular case, they are meeting the sign standards.
Pat? Chris?
Looks good.
Dawn? And Wally?
We're just looking at the parking garage. We have another Freighter sign there. I suppose I could ask, do we need it? Because you're right at the hospital already. I don't know what else it's going to tell you. I think the signs that, the directional signs are the important things, or you could combine the two or something. I'm just throwing out that we've got so many signs that maybe we wouldn't need that one.
I
could be
agree.
wrong.
I think it kind of just adds something to a concrete structure. Brands
It's been brought up that it identifies that the parking structure is related to the hospital, that it's not Emerald
Not
Road,
somebody else.
not Emerald
Yeah.
Rowe's parking structure, it is
Yeah, I'm all for
Freighter.
that.
So that point has been made, that's the purpose of identifying, putting that brand on there. Another wall too, so. Freighter likes to put stuff on walls.
Plus the quality of the sign, it's not a plastic bright blue box kind of thing. I think it's nicer that way too.
I actually like that halo lighting in that. Very nice. Well, we don't do things cheap, Don.
No.
To Pete, on a motion though, because there were changes to the sign plan based on what we did on the other one, what would you say the motion should be? I'm just trying to make it easier on this. So we
Are
can
you
get through this.
making me wordsmith on the fly? You know
Yes.
who's really good at that?
I'm sorry, what? No, go ahead.
Gary's really good at that. Gary's really good at wordsmithing motions on the fly. It'd be what's in the report saying that the Plan Commission approves the sign plan submitted by Freighter Medical College of Wisconsin for the development located at 7901 01 South Sixth Street with modification of permitting only one 5-foot 10-inch tall, 15 square foot directional sign, and one 6-foot 5-inch and 18 square foot directional sign for the development located at 7901 South Sixth Street. So I think that was really the only modification. Everything else came as presented.
That sounds pretty good. Who wants to make that motion?
So moved as I,
I thought it was the guy writing down there.
Oh, okay. I'll make the motion.
As
Which was
stated
just
by
presented
Mr.
to
As
us.
stated
so
by
moved.
Mr.
I've
Wagner.
experienced that in the
Kowski will
past.
second. Yeah.
Okay.
Roll call.
Dickman, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Kokavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye. Corolla, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay.
Good, yeah, good luck.
Did you make it through the traffic okay?
Oh,
Item 6C, reviewing one more sign submitted by Andrew Morrison Orange Leaf Yogurt for the Orange Leaf commercial tenant portion of the building at 160 West Town Square Way.
All right, this one's a lot easier than the last one. I'll tell you that right now. Orange Leaf is coming back. You know, they came back once before for sign plan review for their wall sign on the south side of the building, which was their entrance sign. Just like the other developments that are there, they have a special use elevation, so they're allowed to have one both on the entrance facade and one on the north side, which is a non-entrance facade. They're essentially proposing the exact same type wall sign. They're just putting it on the other side of the building to match up with Potbelly's and Five Guys. At this time, they are not proposing any eye-level signs. So if they do want to put any eye-level signs, they do need to come back before the Plan Commission for that review. It's a rather straightforward one. It does comply with design standards as well as size requirements for both the DTS and for the master sign plan for this development. Staff recommends that the Plan Commission approve the sign plan submitted by Orange Leaf Yogurt for Unit 400 of the building at 160 West Town Square Way.
Thank you, Pete. And just to eliminate some discussion, yes, they are going to use orange as the color, so you don't have anything to say about that. Questions, comments? Nothing. All right.
Corral
motion.
moves that the commission approves the sign plan submitted by Orange Leaf Yogurt for Unit 400 of the building at 160 West Town Square Way.
Seifert seconds. Yeah.
Roll call.
Dickman, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Kokavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye. Corral, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Okay, last item on the night, plan review, review site, building and landscape, and lighting plans submitted by Joe Pilsky Villa Healthcare for a skilled nursing facility at 2700 West Honadell Boulevard. Carrie, finally.
How you doing?
Well,
So this
far,
is
so
a
good.
site plan review for a proposed 87,828 square foot skilled nursing and hospice care facility on the property. You'll recall that a conditional use permit was reapproved in May and June of this year. There were some issues regarding timing. No issues regarding the actual conditional use, however. It's a single-story building. Hospice is physically separated on the north, although it is connected via corridor. All setbacks are met in the proposal. There are two proposed curb cuts on Honadell Boulevard, one single, two-lane access around the facility. Parking is situated mostly on the west. One loading and service area with an overhead roll-up door is located on the east. I can zoom into that so that people can get an idea of where the service area is. That includes their employee entrance, has a couple of parking stalls there, their trash enclosure, and also a generator pad and enclosure. Both of those enclosures will be concrete brick veneer to match the building. The enclosure door on the trash enclosure will be cedar doors, so there's always the concern that the cedar or any kind of wood might not hold up to the elements. So there's always a recommendation that they consider some more durable material, composite or metal or something like that. Again, totally up to the applicant, but there is that suggestion. Parking again is situated mostly on the west side of the property. And the entrance, the main entrance is in this circular area here. There are a couple of parking stalls that are on the northeast here, and then again, the 4 stalls here. So there's a total of approximately 17 stalls plus the 4 on the northeast side. The minimum requirement is 1 stall for every 3 patient beds for nursing home facilities, plus 1 employee at peak shift. There will be a total of 144 beds for the entire facility, 45 employees at the peak shift, for a total of 93 required stalls, 99 are proposed in the plans. Landscaping plans for the facility have also been proposed. It does show quite a bit of buffering on the east side. If you have questions regarding that, I know that my staff report had mentioned that at the time of writing, the landscape plans were being revised. That was more for details rather than for siting of plantings. So if I zoom into the east side here, again, these are the proposed plantings that are going to be along the existing residential properties. So there are some tall bushes and arborvitae there, those kinds of blocking materials. If there are any requirements further from these plans, then staff will continue to work with the applicant to make sure that those concerns are addressed fully in the plans. And there is a condition of approval that says the director will have the final approval unless the Plan Commission directs otherwise. If we get into the elevations of the building, we'll show that they have a mixture of a few building materials. And we'll have to go section by section here, so perhaps it would be better to just go to the zoomed in right away. So we have a mix of fiber cement lap siding in 3 different shades, vertical panels in a shade of tan, trim colors to match the building materials, primary building materials, concrete brick in shades of gray and brown, and pre-finished vinyl windows and aluminum storefronts for the entrances and general window areas. You'll notice that some of the roof lines are undulating. Some of the roof lines will be shingles, a majority of them actually, and some of them will have pre-finished standing seam metal roofs. Those are mostly over the accent type roofing elements. There are also pre-finished aluminum canopies in bronze over some of the entrances, particularly on the west elevation. The rooftop mechanical units are proposed to be hidden behind bronze-colored pre-finished aluminum screens on the roof. If there are any ground-mounted mechanical units, which we've seen are not usually sited at this point, usually depends upon the utility, so that comes afterward, unfortunately. Those will also have to be screened, either using vegetation or some other kind of appropriate screening. There's also a requirement in code that we have said many times before, requires 4-inch minimum for the brick veneer. The plans that have been submitted do appear to meet that requirement. It is in here just as more of an FYI so that everybody is aware there is that requirement. If there's any kind of value engineering that's done between Plan Commission approval and building, that requirement is still there. There's also a requirement in code for a 3/4 majority approval for the use of fiber cement as a primary building material. There is one other section of code that I need to bring to the Plan Commission's attention, and that is the minimum requirement for 75% of the visible perimeter to be finished with an acceptable glass, brick, or decorative masonry material. You have in your packets an email from the applicant kind of outlining the rationale for the proposed and chosen building materials and their ratios, if you will. It is up to the Plan Commission to determine whether or not the use of fiber cement with the proposed glass and brick is an acceptable combination to fulfill that 75% visible perimeter requirement. And if we get into a couple more of the elevations, just so you get an idea of what every part of the building is going to look like. Unfortunately, the black and white elevations don't really give you much in terms of pretty picture, shall we say. It gives you more of the specifics on the building materials, but we can get into some of the color renderings. Again, these are the color palettes and the materials. You'll see there's 2 different types of roofing, 3 different types of siding, 2 different types of brick veneer, and then the stone caps for the trim. There's 4 different colors, and then there's some miscellaneous, including that RTU screening. So this is one of the views that you will see along 27th Street. We have another image that's in color here. So we have probably looking from the northern side of 27th Street, kind of giving you more of an idea of what the entry will look like. And then that southern side probably from Honadel.
Could you just stop a second?
Sure.
You got there, it says external rendering of the hospice entry from South 20. That entrance for that is separate from the main area, is that correct?
There is an
Maybe those
entrance that
divided?
is separate from having to go through the main facility, yes.
Okay, I want to make sure. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Staff's recommendation is that the Plan Commission approves the site and building plan submitted by Joe Tukotsky of Villa Healthcare for the property at 2700 West Honadel Boulevard, subject to conditions 1 through 7. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. At this time, we'll open it up. Questions, comments? Pat?
Kind of like how it looks for where it's going. It kind of fits that area. I don't see any issues.
Fred?
Do we have any problems with the fire department as far as getting around that area? It seems to be a little tight.
You viewed that once, didn't you?
Yeah, I think we did.
You know,
Yes, so we did review site access previous to the submittal to determine access points, road widths. They will comply with code on all those road widths, and we've been actively working with the civil recently to determine an FDC location, hydrant locations. We're okay with the access. We're okay with the access.
it just seemed a little tight on the north side of that driveway going around the hospice.
It could be. I think generally when you look at your access points and when we run into problems, it's with other vehicles. The fire department access roads, we like to think those are fire department access roads exclusively. Once you get away from the parking areas and once you get to the north side, it's probably limited to somewhat to employees and service people. So we would be comfortable with that up there.
Okay.
Because the parking seems to be located western on the center portion of the building.
Thank you.
Rossi?
I just want to talk about the hospice unit. It is separated, from the main building, but is it completely standalone? In other words, as far as personnel that work there, or could you have nurses come through, from one area to the other? And how about food and all those type of things? I'm just curious how that's going to be handled.
Grant Reginato with Direct Supply, 6767 North Industrial Road in Milwaukee. So the owner is going to operate the skilled nursing. They're going to have a separate operator for the hospice. And that's another reason to have, there's multiple reasons to have its own entrance, but there would be shared food service. So they would have to cart over some, hot food, daily.
And that did sound logical, but it always made it sound like it was a separate unit, but there is something that has to occur from the other building to make it operate, is what you're saying.
Yes, and it is separated with doors, and really that may be the only separation to the other skilled nursing portion.
Harry, just very quickly, can you go back to them color renderings and give me the directions? We got them in our packet, but it doesn't say east, west, north, south.
All of the color renderings are actually shown from 27th Street and portion of the building that's facing 27th and Honadel. We don't have renderings of the north, we don't have renderings of the east.
Okay, so they're
Okay.
just different angles.
Different
Looking-
angles from the roads.
Looking east. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Dawn? Okay,
Looks good.
motion?
Dickman makes a motion, the Plan Commission approves the site and building plan submitted by Joe Tukotsky, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, Villa Healthcare for the property at 2700 West Honadale Boulevard with the following conditions. Number 1, that all building and fire codes are met. Number 2, that all exterior brick veneer meets the minimum 4-inch thick requirement per code. Number 3, that the final plan, site, building, landscaping, lighting, etc. are submitted in digital format for review and approval by the Department of Community Development prior to the submission of building permit applications. Number 4, that all mechanical equipment, ground, building, rooftop is screened from view. 5, the final lighting plans indicating luminaire type, pole type, color, and height are submitted for final approval by the electrical inspector prior to submission of building permit applications. Number 6, that stormwater and grading plans are submitted for final approval by the engineering department prior to issuance of permits. And number 7, that all water and sewer utility connections are coordinated with the Oak Creek Water and Sewer Utility.
Chandler, second.
Just before we vote, just want to make sure if you looked at that email on the requirement on the glazing, he gave his explanation. He's just a few percentage short on that. Everybody's fine with that. Okay.
For bringing that up.
Roll call.
Dickman, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Crowell, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Brings us to adjournment.
Grillo moves to adjourn at 7:24.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Dickman, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Grell, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Great. I'd like to thank you all for joining us. I'd like to thank our Assistant Chief, Mike Kresick, who came and was invaluable tonight, sorting out some stuff, our IT guy, Tim, and more importantly, our planning staff. I know it's only an hour and a half meeting, but there's a lot of man hours that go into getting this so we can get through here in an hour and a half. So kudos to you and your department. Thank you for tuning in. And again, please get out there, discover Oak Creek, and celebrate Oak Creek. Good night.